afternoon, everybody. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Doing great. All right, so thank you all for joining us here today. We have representatives from Veterans Benefit Guide, Oscar Chavez. We have Alan Cohen from the American Legion, and we have Kristen Prince with K9 for Warriors. And obviously, this panel is about programs and services for veterans and spouses after service. So I'm going to start off with Miss Kristen. Kristen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, good afternoon. So, as Becky had mentioned, my name is Kristen Prince. So, I am with the resource team here at Canines for Warriors. So, I'm actually here twofold. One, to explain what our program does, but also we want to make sure we're building out resources for our veterans because sometimes, maybe 80% of the time that they're calling specifically for a service dog, which is what we do. And I'll get into that in just a second. But there's sometimes calls that, they need help with other resources, whether it's buying a house, helping with their education, maybe VA benefits. Or sometimes it's a service dog that's outside of our realm. So I want to make sure that we're always building up our resource list for any needs that our veterans can, use. So anyway, so as far as Canines for Warriors, we have an amazing organization here. I can really talk about it all day, but I'll try to give you just the snippets. So we are one of the largest providers of service dogs to warriors. And basically, with our warriors that are coming through our program, they would have to be diagnosed with a service-related PTSD, maybe have a traumatic brain injury, or be dealing with the repercussions of military sexual trauma. So our dogs are more helping on the mental health side. I don't like to say that they are mobility trained dogs because there's really only one command on the mobility side that we teach them. But it is pretty cool. You can actually say brace to your service dog. They come stand in front of you at attention, I like to say, and then you can use them to balance yourself as you're on your way up. So it's pretty cool. But outside of that, we try not to say that they're mobility trained dogs for that reason. But it's great. So anybody who's interested in applying, because we do actually serve veterans from all eras. So prior to about 2 years ago, we used to do just post 9/11 veterans and active duty. Now we cover all eras and including active duty as well, which is pretty neat. But our program is so cool. We actually do it at no charge to the warrior at all. So let's say one of you ends up applying, and let's say we fast forward and say we get you approved. We would only ask the veteran to cover the cost to and from our facility for training. So we do actually require a 3-week training course that's here on one of our campuses. So our main campus is here in Jacksonville, Florida. But we actually just opened up in San Antonio, Texas, which is really exciting. We had our first round of graduates occur at that location last month, and we're actually doing our next class next month. So it's very exciting to see that campus grow. And then probably in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll have Phoenix, Arizona growing as well. We already have the campus. We are starting to build the team out there. And in fact, I think it was last week they got their first dog that they're starting to train out there. So it's kind of really cool milestones that we're hitting, which is very exciting. So whichever campus that they end up going to get their service dog, because we would choose it based on availability of the dogs, I guess is the best way to explain it. But they would actually come and spend 3 weeks with us, and we cover the room and board. We actually have like apartment style homes where we put them up. We actually cover all their meals, and we really try to make it an all-inclusive training. So just to give you a quick idea, there are some class times, as I like to say. So it's teaching them about what it's going to be like once they get home or once they get back to their, jobs or school, anything like that. We cover what it's like having a dog, because there are some veterans who have never owned a dog before. So let's cover their medical care. Let's cover grooming. Let's cover pet insurance, because that's something that we want to make sure that they're aware of as well. But then it's really cool because it's very interactive. So just to give you an example, so in the morning, they might go to a park, work along with the dog trainer. So this way they understand what their dog has already been trained to perform. And then basically we take them in the afternoon to different department stores, grocery stores, anything out in public, into a different shopping style to help them get more acclimated into the world of having a service dog. So once again, we try to make it very inclusive, and we also do restaurants for lunchtime. And then we have a really cool thing called House Moms and House Dads, and they cook a homemade meal for them each night that they're here as well. So once again, it's all inclusive and at no cost to the warrior too, which is awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do have. I've actually personally came to one of your facilities
Nice.
and volunteered,
Oh, cool.
helping clean up and things like
Yeah.
that. And that's one of the things that we're talking about. Obviously, we're real estate agents now, but giving back to our community and getting ourselves involved. So, can you talk to us a little bit about some, I guess, some volunteer programs that you may have?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and in fact, there's different realms of the volunteer opportunities. So there's anything from being hands-on, like you're talking about, Becky, right? So we do have some volunteers that might come through and help with the cleaning of the kennel. And I know sometimes that can seem a little bit daunting. And it's like, well, hang on, I want to play with the dogs. Well, same thing. It's a liability, right? Just in case something ever happens to one of the dogs, we want to make sure that you're covered. So it's more to help us make sure that we're maintaining a clean and safe environment for our dogs. So that's kind of on the kennel side. But gosh, we have volunteer opportunities. So remember, I was telling you about those house moms. We actually have, or house moms and house dads, let me be specific. So we actually have volunteers as well who will help cook for our warriors that are on campus. So same thing, that's an opportunity as well. We have anything from ambassadors that go out and do events, and as far as representing canines for warriors, because that is a nice thing too. Even though our main campus is here in Jacksonville, Florida, and once again, right, we're branching out into Texas and also Arizona, we actually help warriors all throughout the United States, into Puerto Rico and Guam as well. So that means we can have people requesting us to be at events all throughout the United States, right, in any of those areas. Well, it's not always possible for us to get out there. So sometimes it's a matter of, hey, how can I help represent Canines for Warriors in that capacity? And then there's anything from, hey, do you need help on the administrative side? Sometimes it's a matter of, hey, we need these documents printed, or we may need these documents stuffed into envelopes and mailed out. So all different opportunities for sure.
Great. And how are you guys mostly funded?
So great question. So the majority of our funding is actually by private donors. So that's the majority of it, but we do actually apply for a lot of grants, right? So kind of government sponsored as well, but that's just through those grant programs. So we might actually get a grant or have a grant writer who helps us get funds for, maybe it's on the operations side, or maybe it's a donor who says, I want a dog that I want to sponsor. So there's definitely different avenues, but through all different realms. All of those monies are important because it takes a lot of time and effort to train these dogs. It's usually about a 4 to 6 month time frame for these dogs once they get to our campus. But those are just the rescue dogs. And I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry. I might be talking for a while, but real quick. So our mission is actually a 2-in-1 mission. So meaning to save lives. So our ultimate goal is that we actually will go and get a dog out of a high kill shelter, do a lot of temperament testing, make sure they're the size and the right height for us. Because remember, with that brace command, we want to make sure that they're tall enough and steady enough to be able to assist a warrior on the way up if they're getting up off the ground. So a lot of temperament testing is going involved. And once again, they're coming from another rescue or shelter. So we bring them to our facility, and then that's when that training starts. So yeah, it's about 4 to 6 months, but that's just an average, right? Just like with people, some people learn faster, just like some dogs learn faster, and some take a little bit longer. So once again, it's a lot of time and effort. As far as if there's any problems when they come out of the shelter, we make sure they're healthy before we start any training. And then there's kenneling, there's feeding, there's an enrichment program to make sure that they're not getting depressed being in the kennels. We have different puzzles, different scents, different beddings, all to keep them stimulated during the time that they're here, because it is a kennel setting. So we try to make it fun for them as well. So anyway, so that's my long rant on that.
And it's a beautiful facility. It's
Yes.
gorgeous. Yeah. So you guys have really done a great job with that. So how would we direct anyone to you, or who would they reach out to for your services
Yeah.
if they're interested?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So I will put in the comments my contact because it might be easier to reach out to me. I can certainly go over any questions or concerns related to our program and to find out if they're going to be a good fit, because we want to make sure if they're a good fit, hey, let's help them through that application process. And if not, remember those resources that I was telling you about, we still want to point them in the right direction. So let's say, like earlier, I had a phone call from a warrior who said, well, but I have mobility issues. Sometimes my balance hasn't been what it is, over the last couple of years. Hey, that's not a problem. That's just not what our dogs are trained to do. Let me give you these other organizations that are also accredited just like we are. So I try to point them in the right direction. So I'll make sure I put my contact info and you can send them my way. Or they can always just do the caninesforwarriors.org. So I'll have that in the information in the chat side as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Alan Cohen with the American Legion. Hey, Alan.
How you doing, Becky? Thank you very much. And just as a quick aside, Kristen, I am familiar. I'm in Florida also. I am familiar with what Canines for Warriors does, and thank you so much for doing it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
I've met actually 2 or 3 veterans who have benefited from your program. Thank you again.
Fantastic.
With that said, I'm not really exactly sure where to start. There's so much to share about the American Legion.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? I know you're a New Yorker.
Yes, I am. Maybe you can't tell by my accent.
Yes,
But I'm
and I
native,
also know you're a Vietnam veteran as well.
that is also correct. Okay, a native New Yorker. As I had, excuse me, as it told Becky, my father and his brothers and sisters were born in another country. My grandparents emigrated from Russia to Canada to escape religious discrimination. And so the family migrated to Canada because that's where they had family. I had a great uncle who was a fur trapper. And my dad and along with the whole rest of the family, lived in Canada for a while, then immigrated and ended up in New York. Got here just in time for the Great Depression. So they were able to work their way through it. And I remember even as a kid, my father telling us some stories every once in a while about that. And there was always followed up with a statement to the effect that no matter how it is, no matter how it was, there is no doubt that the United States of America was the greatest place on this planet. And I had that imbued in me, as did my brother and sister, but I had that imbued in me from as far back as I can remember as a child. So time passed. I graduated from high school, went into college. And before the end of my second year in college, I came to the realization, well, a couple of them, but I came to the realization that why did I have to sit in classrooms and listen to these instructors when I knew so much more than them? And so I decided at that time to maybe take a year off and then get back to it. Now, at that time, Vietnam was hot and heavy, so to speak. And it didn't take the draft board long to realize that, hey, guess what? This guy's not going to college anymore. He's eligible. I saw it coming. And so I volunteered for the draft and I went into the military, having spent a year in Vietnam, came back. And as you know, I'm sure, didn't come back to the warmest welcome. It was very different at that time for Vietnam veterans than it is for veterans from World War II, Korea, and every conflict since. So I said, well, if that's the way it's going to be, that's fine. Turn your back on me. I'm going to turn my back on you too, which I did at the time. I just went about the business of building a life. And in 2005, a whole set of circumstances arose, at which time I registered for VA healthcare. I did so, and everything was fine until 2008, when I was diagnosed with a very serious health issue that was going to necessitate major surgery.